Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm going to be talking about Zoroark, but not actually Zoroark itself, but the Pokemon that go with Zoroark. So if you don't know what Zoroark does, it's a Stage 1 Pokemon that turns into other Stage 1s. Keep in mind you don't keep the energy or anything else attached or whatever when you change into the other Pokemon. So generally you're looking for one energy attachment Pokemon. I'm looking at these, I think they all are one energy attachment. We'll see though. And then the energy you can use, obviously, if it's colorless or whatever, you can just use one of a certain type, which is fine. But then keep in mind you can also use the double turbo energy, which provides two colorless energy. It does reduce your damage output, but it's still not a huge deal. And then you can also use the really powerful reversal energy, which actually powers up a lot of the attackers we're going to be talking about today. And so that provides 3 energy of any type, and then it only works if you're down on prizes, though. And also does not work on multi-prizers, so there are a few multi-prizers we'll take a look at. And so reversal doesn't work with those. But first of all, I'll just go in the order here. It's kind of small. Oh, you can't see if I do that. Okay, you can see now, hopefully, and I'll say what they are. So Hisuian Arcanine is one of the ones. It's a reversal attacker. It's fighting, it hits for fighting weakness. I'll just go by type, I suppose. So I'll start off with fighting here. I think Hisuian Arcanine is probably the best fighting Pokemon. It's pretty good. It definitely will one-shot stuff when it's hitting for weakness, so it just gets the job done. So I'd say it's solid B tier. Next up, Cleavor. Cleavor's a bit easier to use, but will not be one-shotting stuff as often. I don't really think it's I don't know, when you want to go and you want to go in hard, this is too colorless. It does I believe 10 plus 30 more feature points bench Pokemon, which is pretty strong, but it won't always be one-shotting stuff. You're looking to KO Arceus, and this isn't always doing that. So in my opinion, this is just D. Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend playing this one. It's not awful, though. Next up, we have the Donphan, which does 110, I believe, for 1. That being said, I don't know. I've never been a fan of this one. Admittedly, it's very important if you want to play a fighting-based deck, but even something like Lucario, I just looked on Limitless and found all the Pokemon that were played with Zoroark, and Lucario wasn't in there, and a lot of other fighting ones weren't in there. If you are playing a fighting-based build, Donphan's solid because it's only 1 energy, but I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of it. Next, you have Wormadam. There's a bunch of these. Again, this is an okay fighting attacker. Honestly, I think this one's also going to be B tier. I don't think it's played a ton. It depends the build, but if you're playing double turbo and reversal, this Wormadam's are really good. It's not always getting those one-shots, but by the end of the game it is. And I'd say it's worth running in a wide variety of decks. I'd say either Hisuian Arcanine or the Wormadam, the fighting Wormadam, the Sandy Cloak, you want in every Zoroark deck you're making. And last we have Palossand. Palossand does, it's a spread attacker. It's actually a solid one. Again, I'll put it in B tier because it does, I believe, 30 teacher points Pokemon for 1 fighting. Of course, Manaphy's in the format. So, honestly, I'll put this in C. There are some better ones that we'll take a look at, but it's not bad. It's definitely worth running. Next up, let's take a look at the dark Pokemon. There are only a few of these. Let's see. So, this is Mabostiff. I'll talk about the Mabostiffs first. So, this Mabostiff here, which is an attacker, it has an attack, I think it's called Comeuppance or something, but pretty much when it's hit into next turn, it responds with the same amount of damage. Honestly, I think this one's really bad. I wouldn't really recommend playing this. Your opponent will gust around it. And realistically, it essentially does no damage, because you'll probably have double turbo, so it'll be doing no damage. Your opponent just one-shots you and does 100-something damage, but they don't die themselves, so it's not really that good. I think it's, honestly, I think this Mabostiff's really bad. It's only Mabostiff with the effect of Escape Rope, essentially. It's okay, but at the end of the day, you're not really looking to do attackers, you're looking to do attackers, not support Pokemon. Oh, I have Flapple here twice. Oops. Anyway, so Mabostiff here, it's alright, but, I don't know, I feel like you'd much rather be putting this with another Pokemon that attacks or something really important to your engine, such as the Bibarel or Kirlia, which is generally one of those two. I'd say Kirlia is better. Also, I don't have the engine pieces here. They're kind of separate. You usually don't turn to them with Zoroark too often, so I figured I wouldn't include them on this list, but obviously they're important. But yeah, the Mabostiff essentially switches your opponent, which is sometimes useful, but honestly it's a lot to pull off, and I'm not a huge fan. Admittedly, you can attack with it, but We'll get to the next one. Your Medina, which is actually very good. It's very helpful against the Mew VMAX matchup, and not an auto win, but very solid. And it's also solid just as an attacker. And you can pay it easier as well because it's all colorless. It is 3 energy still. I'd still say it's B. Honestly, the top of B. I think you should be putting this in every single Zoroark build you're playing, unless you really don't care about Mew at all, and just think you can beat it anyways, or you just will take the loss. But honestly, Medina is so good, and it's one of the staples in Zoroark. Debatably, I think some people might say it's the best card in Zoroark. I wouldn't, but that used to be the case when UV Max was everywhere. And last, and also least, it's going to be Honchkrow here. And this is just an attacker. Kind of like, honestly, it's like the same as Mbostiff. It does move the energy to your bench, but because Zoroark evolving removes the energy, it's pretty underwhelming because then you probably can't keep the energies anyway, so it forces you to make some subpar plays. And if you're looking to restore the energy, we'll talk about Frostmoth, actually. I'll talk about that right after this, which is good. It's not great, but it's the Honchkrow I wouldn't really ever recommend playing. So now water Pokemon. We have, first of all, the Frostmoth. As I said, I believe it returns the energy to your hand when you attack. It's still not great, but I'll put it in C tier. I know there's some people who really like this, and think it's super like versatile and powerful. I mean, power level is not amazing, but you can hit for weakness sometimes. And honestly, if you're hitting, well, there's a better water type attacker we'll talk about, which is going to be Titan, which is honestly one of the best ones. I'll put in A tier. For special energy, you do 220. This is just the best raw damage pretty much in the game for Zoroark. So Titan's super important and very much overshadows Frostmoth because of its typing and just higher damage output. And Frostmoth has some value for preserving the energy, but really you're looking to just destroy stuff, and Titan is the best Pokemon for doing that. Frostmoth honestly comes up short. I don't like Honchkrow, but Frostmoth's a little better. It's certainly better at what it does, but I still don't love it. Also, can put your opponent to sleep, which is alright. Now we have Slowbro, which is actually probably the best one in the game. It's so good. It's pretty much saying if your opponent has 1 prize remaining, just take 2 prizes. Also, it can put your opponent to sleep again, but taking 2 prizes is just very good. It just often wins you the game. It's so important to every game plan. It's a bit more awkward if you're just playing Reversal and not Twin, or sorry, not Double Turbo. And it was better when you had Twin and stuff like that, but it's still very good. And Slowbro is definitely, in my opinion, one of the if not the most important piece for Zoroark right now, because it just allows you to win games easier. Next, and probably the worst one, is going to be Wugtrio. I know some people really like it. It's not very good, though, in the deck, because it's just like mills, but it's very inconsistent, and also it's not like part of the main synergy of the deck. So I think Wugtrio comes up really short a lot of the time. If your opponent makes like silly plays and just turbos straight through the deck, Wugtrio can be okay, but unfortunately, I think it's just a bit too weak. But anyone who's had experience with Wugtrio in Zoroark, I'd love to hear your experience as well. Let's talk about Grass next. So we got the Wormadam, we got Trevenant, we got Spidops, and Scovillain. Scovillain, I don't remember if it burns them, but it's not great. Grass weakness is kind of silly to hit. So this Wormadam, I'm going to put an F tier. It's like kind of like awful. I wouldn't really ever recommend playing that one. And then we see that there is going to be Scovillain, which is a little better in D, but actually no, it'll still be an F. I don't think this Scovillain's really good. Trevenant, I actually like Trevenant. I haven't played with it in Zoroark, I don't think, but if it's KO'd by Pokemon V, it doesn't give up a prize. Its attack here is alright, nothing amazing, but nothing awful, and usable for reversal, so it just comes across as good enough. And some games can be super important because your opponent will fall behind on the prize race because of this Trevenant. Well, you can still attack with it with reversal, so I think this Trevenant's super worth playing if you are worried about certain V matchups. Vs obviously aren't as popular as they used to be, though, so I completely get if you don't put this in your deck as well, but it's a powerful one theoretically. Next up, we have Spidops, which is actually, in my opinion, directly worse than the Golduck. They're slightly different, but essentially is a removal Pokemon. It's called spot removal. Is a term that people use to just remove a Pokemon from play and just essentially discard it. I think Spidops doesn't discard it. I believe it goes into the deck, which is an annoyance for your opponent, but at the end of the day, it's not a huge deal. And I don't really think it's worth playing. It's not awful, but honestly, you can KO stuff pretty easily, or like wall stuff or whatever, so generally, I don't think this is particularly useful. Next, let's talk about the last type with the Wormadam. Will be the Metal type. I think Wormadam's probably the best one here. It will struggle to get early KOs on Chien Pao, but overall it's pretty alright. I'd say it's C tier. I still wouldn't. I don't think Metal type's super important to hit right now. And then there's also Scizor, which is very good in Chien Pao. Pretty much useless the rest of the time, though. I'm going to put it in D tier. It's not that much worse than Wormadam, but it's so limited in its scope that it makes it worse. And then certainly the best one in my opinion is going to be Melmetal here, which does 80, or I think, yeah, 80 for 3, which it does hit Metal Weakness, but then is immune to Pokemon with abilities. Same thing as the Alolan Vulpix V-Star, which in my opinion is one of the best Pokemon in the game right now, and it has the same effectiveness attack, meaning it just like is immune so much of the time and can auto-win. It's very important in the Gardevoir matchup, which is a bit tricky to navigate. Obviously, you can target on Gardevoir EX with Dark-type Pokemon, but sometimes that's not super great, and sometimes Gardevoir has spread options as well. So we're going to see that Melmetal is honestly one of the best parts of Zoroark right now. Next up, we got Lightning-type attackers. There's Kilowattrel, which is whatever. This is the Lightning Pokemon people usually use, I think. I feel like I'm missing something. No, I guess not. So we got Kilowattrel, which is good against... okay, so Raichu here is only one colorless on a stage 1, which is nice. So super easy to pay, and then it does big damage if your opponents use their V-Star power already, enough to one-shot stuff like Lugia and Palkia with weakness, but it's very good against Lugia. But then Palkia will sometimes hold off on the V-Star power, so sometimes people play Kilowattrel instead. I don't really like Kilowattrel. I'll say it's like bottom of C. Raichu will be top of C. I feel like honestly, Lightning Weakness isn't like the most important thing in the game right now. It's fine, but I don't think Raichu's necessary. I'd say B and up is probably stuff that you're looking to play. And then Kilowattrel is... I like Raichu more than Kilowattrel. Kilowattrel is very niche in its uses, although it does more damage, I believe. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't remember how much damage Kilowattrel does. Not gonna lie. Let me zoom in here. It does 150. Yeah. So Raichu does more. And then the Electivire, honestly, Electivire, I'll put in top of B. It does 50 to use your opponent's Pokemon for a reversal, which is quite good. It's a nice spread option. We'll talk about some more spread Pokemon later. We also mentioned Palossand. I think Electivire is one of the best spread options there is. There are some bad spread options. There are some good spread options, but Electivire does a ton of damage. Of course, Manaphy is there a lot to just stop it, so you need to kind of be careful and figure out how you can do it at the right time, but honestly, it's very powerful, and in a spread-based deck, it's nice. Zoroark spread, you can't just play spread because stuff can go wrong, but it's a nice option to have to lean back on, but again, it isn't the main spread Pokemon either. I guess we'll look at the dragons now. Flapple and Appleton. Flapple punishes ability-based decks, and then Appleton punishes special energy-based decks. Appleton, like, punishing special energy is fine. It used to be just for Lugia, but realistically, Raichu is also pretty good there. But Appleton, I say is a little bit better. I'll put it at the bottom of B, and Flapple I'll put in, like, mid. I'll put in the top of... No, I'm going to put Flapple in A. Flapple is so good, just generally. Its low HP is a bit annoying, but it is level ball searchable, which is also kind of good. And you can just kind of KO stuff, and it's just a nice Pokemon to have. Obviously, like, it's not always good if your opponent doesn't have any abilities in play or not a ton, but if you're looking for some general, very universal, or pretty universal and also very cheap attacker, I think Appleton's the one you got to go with. There's no other Pokemon, in my opinion, that's great for one colorless energy. Next up, we have the Psychic ones. I'm going to move this Flapple because, yeah. Actually, no, let's talk about... Oh, I forgot about Noivern. So, yeah, Noivern EX also is a dragon. First of all, it's one attack, which is actually your main attack you're going to be using. It makes you immune to basics, which is okay, but honestly, it's not that universally good. And then your second attack, it stops your opponent from playing special energy, but it's super hard to power up because it's a Psychic Dark on an EX, so you can't use reversal. You can make it pseudo Noivern focused Zoroark deck, but that's not really common. And as you've seen, like, the Dark options aren't that good. The Psychic options are, but I mean, nothing absurdly good. This Noivern comes up very short. I wouldn't really recommend playing it because multi-players aren't great. I'll put in top of D, I suppose. Oinkologne then is like a generic one as well. Speaking of big damage for one colorless on a stage 1, Oinkologne also has your back, and its HP is relatively high, but that makes it a multi-prizer, and will be one-shotted. Most decks can one-shot it if they want, so I'm going to say it's only somewhere in the middle of the C tier. Next up we have I'll talk about Breakson, I guess, actually. Breakson's kind of good because it can do big damage for 2 colors, but it's based on how many Serenas you have in your discard, and Serena isn't that good right now. Obviously, the discard effect is good in a Zoroark-based deck, but Research is better, and possibly Zinnia's Resolve might also be better. So it's a bit outclassed, and obviously Gusting V's used to be so good, but then EXs came out, and then it wasn't as good anymore. So I think Breakson isn't really something I'd go with. I'll put it in the bottom of C, or actually no, I'll put it in the top of C. 100% if you want to play it, you can play it, but keep in mind there's a bit of a deck build around, so it's up to you. It used to be the go-to way to play it, and it used to be so good, but right now it's certainly faded off some. And last, but probably best, it's going to be the Psychic Pokemon here. So we got Mismagius, we got Hisuian Zoroark, we got Ceruledge, and we got Drifloon. So I'll start with Mismagius. It does 20 to each of your opponent's Pokemon, but keep in mind it plays them as damage counters, which is actually better because Manaphy is a thing. And this can deal with Manaphy pretty well. You do this a bunch of times, then when you're KO'd from full HP by damage, which is obviously pretty common, and it is also, oh no, this one is level ball searchable. Then you do 8 damage counters to your opponent's active. So that just is a ton of damage put on, a solid chunk of damage put onto the board by the Mismagius. That's 1 Psychic on an evolution, but keep in mind that the Psychic package does include Fog Crystal, and if you're playing a Curlier-based engine, then Fog Crystal is a pretty solid inclusion in the deck, and you can play basic energies. So you can get Mismagius into play easily, and you can use Luminous Energy as well. I didn't talk about that too much, but it provides 1 energy of any type on a stage 1. This kind of works with Donphan. That's about it, but it works well with Mismagius as well. And then Mismagius here is just like so annoying to have to deal with for weaker decks. I think Mismagius is so important against single prize decks. It's my favorite one. It's probably just somewhere in like the A tier, above Melmetal, below Titan. Actually, no, I'll put it top of A. I think Mismagius is so good. This is 100% something you should be playing in your decks, although it does require a bit of a different build, but not that drastically different, and it gets so much payoff. And then we have Hisuian Zoroark. This is a really interesting one as well. Not my favorite, but you can use its attack for 1 Psychic to recover a card from your discard into your hand. But much more importantly, you can you can instant KO your opponent at the end of their turn. So that's not really an instant KO, but it's one shot and it's just a KO. Doesn't have to do damage. It doesn't affect. So if they switch out, obviously it will not KO them. However, this is honestly one that's like kind of nice. You can trap stuff and then KO stuff, and also it's a bit of a Hail Mary play at the end of the game. It doesn't feel great to use. Honestly, it's not one I love, but it's one that's very powerful and sees play a lot, and it's free to use as well. So the fact that it doesn't take any energy is actually really nice. Next, we have Ceruledge. If you're looking for a psychic type attacker, I guess Ceruledge is the one you go for. Honestly, Ceruledge is very good. It does 200 to an EX or a V. I'm in 100 generally, which would be fine to KO single prizers, so with weakness. Ceruledge is pretty alright. It's definitely noticeably worse than Titan as like a general Pokemon, but you know, I think Ceruledge is alright as a it's a very good psychic weakness hitter. Next we have Drifloon, which is 8 damage counters spread out any way you want on your opponent's side of the board. This one's bad. Like, some people play it, but I wouldn't, like, if you're playing a very spread-focused deck, Drifloon's fine, but the rest of the time I wouldn't really recommend playing this, because it really comes up short a lot of the time. And that's it. As I said, I would have Flapple twice for whatever reason. But yeah, this is the tier list. I'm wondering what you guys think of it. I think this is pretty accurate. So you want to play these Pokemon at the top of the list, obviously, and not these ones. If you're playing like these, that's not really a good sign. Maybe 1 or 2 of them would fit in from time to time, but generally I'd say these ones, the top 3 tiers, and maybe the top 4 are the ones your deck should be built out of. I'm looking at it, I'm wondering, yeah, I think one of my list plays Mabosstiff, so I should probably cut that, but I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm interested in hearing if I missed anything as well. I don't think I did. I was thinking I could talk about like the other Hisuian Arcanine or Lucario, which are alright, but they don't have great synergy. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, I'm excited to see you next time.